Good morning, everyone. Sorry for a slightly late start today. There was some technical problem. So today's session, and I think we shouldn't mind starting slightly late. The title is Personal Branding for Tortoises. So they are
Absolutely.
slow to catch up. And today's speaker is ICF member Ganesh. He's also associated with the Bangalore Business Literature Festival and he's a published author. So he will tell us more about his book and about personal branding for editors or for anyone who is into a self-publishing.
For anyone who's a tortoise.
Yeah, anyone who is a self professional. Over to you, Ganesh. You can give a small brief intro and then start the screen sharing.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much, Vivek. And hi, everybody else. It's wonderful to be here as part of the series. I've been watching the series and the replays on YouTube. So it's really good to be part of this and to present this part of the series. That's been a great job by ICF, Vivek, and team. And let's get started. So, you know what? I'm not going to do the usual thing of telling you a bit about myself now, because that's going to come later in this presentation. I'm going to cover that as part of my own branding. So we'll keep that for later. And let's just dive in. I'm going to share my screen now and get started. Yeah, can you all see this? See the screen? And I'm going to make it full screen. All right.
Hi, Ganesh.
Yes, and there are some familiar faces. Yes, I wanted to say that. Hi, but I wonder where the names have gone. I can see Abha. Hi, Abha. I don't know who. How do I get that list of participants, Vivek? I just want to say. Got it. So yes, there is Jyotirmoy. At least people I know. There's Priyanka. Hi, both of you. And then there is. Yes, I think Esther is there. Yeah, the rest I don't really know much, but we'll get to know each other. It's okay. We're just friends who haven't met before. Okay, so personal branding unpacked for tortoises. All right, so it means what we're going to focus on today is about building a personal brand for growth and success. If you notice, I've not said personal brand, whereas that is possibly the term that you've heard elsewhere earlier. I've used person brand. Can you say why? Can some of you just send me, chat with me, and tell me why that is so? Why have I not called it personal brand? I've opened the chat window, so I'm waiting for some comments. Some thoughts? Hanji, Hanji, that's right. Jyotirmoy says it's about the person. Madhavan says it's about the individual. Yes. So why can't I call it personal brand, which seems to be the more common terminology floating around? Okay. Priyanka says person includes professional plus personal. Personal excludes the professional. Wonderful. Yeah. So if you can see Priyanka's reply that by and large captures it all. See, personal is personal, yeah. Personal email ID versus professional email ID, personal work versus professional work. We know what that means, right? But this is all about your profession. Only that you're here as a person, and as you've rightly said, as an individual. So it's about branding, not a product or a service or a company, but it's about branding you, the individual. Divya says, can I be a little louder? Is that needed? Am I not audible?
Yeah, slightly louder will help.
How about this?
Yeah,
Is
it's
this better?
Yeah, it's better.
Divya, is this better? Some of you just type in your responses. Tell me if I'm
Yes,
clearly audible,
yes,
please.
yes. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, thank you.
This is better. Okay, I'll stay with this. Great. I've just knocked my earphones off. So that's the explanation for using the word person rather than saying personnel, because it's all professional. All right. What is this? Hanji. What do these stand for? Quick answers.
Nike, Google, Netflix.
Okay, Nike, Google, Netflix, and of course the last one is obvious. Britannia.
Not able to see it.
Okay, so Nike, Google, Netflix, and Britannia. Can you tell me a little more about these companies, about these brands? You can unmute yourself and talk. I think that's better than chatting. Let's get some live offline event feel. I'd love to hear voices.
Sportswear, the internet, Google search, then movies, then biscuits.
Okay. ठीक है. We'll go with that. ठीक है. So he said sports, internet search, movies, and
Biscuits.
Biscuits. Right. So here's the thing. Can I ask you what a brand is before I show you what I think a brand is? What is a brand?
Brand is a thappa, a chap, a mark,
Brand is a charm.
a mark, a mark.
A mark. Okay. Other opinions?
The way people know us.
The way people know us. Okay.
It's something that stands for excellence.
Something that stands for excellence. Okay.
It's the image you bring around yourself.
Okay. The image that you bring around yourself. Interesting. Anything
Something
else?
that has become synonymous with the product.
Something that is synonymous with the product. Okay. Fine. So to me, the nub of it all, the essence of it all, is an association, a connection. All right. I'm just removing all the jargon from here. Priyanka says brand is a distinct identity. Yes. So that is the essence of what a brand is. The essence is that you stand for something defined, well defined, and something that's very different from what others around you stand for. Right? And that is what we normally in English call identity, right? What you stand for. That is brand. Your brand is your distinct identity. And it is a set of associations that you will trigger in the minds of your stakeholders, people, clients, etc. So we're all editors, right? Let's take that and let's just stay with that profession. Suppose you were to go back to your clients, each one of us, and ask them, hey, what do you think of me? Or what do I stand for? You know, Ganesh, the editor, Abha, the editor, Divya, the editor. What do I stand for? You ask this question of 10 people, 15 people, 25 people, any number of people. The adjectives that they use to describe you is your brand. That's you. So they may say detail-oriented, timely, very thorough, very experienced, does a great job. So adjectives, typically people don't reply as scientific definitions, right? We use adjectives because this is how we feel about a person. So branding at its very core is about how you make your client feel, how you make your prospective clients feel, and carving out a distinct identity for yourself. So how are you separate, distinct from the others who are in the same profession? So there are a few terms that I want to leave you with. Symbols, values, names, associations. These are all tools that we'll use, things that get created as we establish our brand and as we keep working in any profession. Usually branding is spoken about in terms of products and services, right? So all these brands that you see here are for companies that hawk products or services. FedEx is a service company. What is a product? What's a service? A product is very simple. It's just tangible, it's touchable, feelable, it's tactile, right? So that's a product. You can see it, it has shape, it has form. A service is something that we offer, like what we offer. Editing is not a product, it's a service. I serve them through a process, a method, but what I offer them and what the outcome is kind of intangible. It comes out in the form of a book, yes, but what is my core offering in this whole process It is about improving what has been written, improving the written word, making it more impactful, making it more meaningful to the market, making it more compelling for a buyer to pick up. So that's my offering. That's my value add. That's a service. Similarly, insurance, banking, all these are services. There is no physical product in all of this. Right? So a brand can engender symbols, values, names, associations that will mark out or distinctly identify your product or service or whatever you offer from those of the others. Am I okay so far? Clear? I think pretty much okay. Simple. Just keep typing in your comments because I'm going to be watching the chat window, please. Can you just say yes, all clear? Or if you have a doubt, we can stop here for a minute. I'd love to see a few yeses, nos, please. All clear, yes, all clear, yes. Great, super. Huh. See, but there's a subtext, okay? What is that subtext? Taken together, these symbols, values, names, and associations stand for or create a specific picture in the minds of people, which becomes the basis on which a relationship develops between the brand and its users. So a brand doesn't exist in vacuum. A brand is not a one-time entity. It's not something that will come up today and then, die away after a year or so, or after a month or so, or after one interaction or so. No. To be called a brand, you have to sustain yourself. You have to be there. There are many brands which are 400 years old, 350 years old, So honestly, there really is no time limit. Brands are supposed to be timeless. The best brands are timeless. So there is a relationship that you create. And that's, I think, part of the essence of branding. One is we spoke of the distinct identity, but the other is also this isn't identity for the sake of identity. It's a means to an end. What is that end? The end is to generate profitable, happy relationships with our clients, whatever our field be and whoever those clients be. But to have mutually profitable, sustained, happy relationships is a core objective of branding. Otherwise, then there's no meaning. It just doesn't exist in vacuum. So like I briefly explained or outlined earlier, a person branding is nothing but a person, an individual who's considered to be a brand. So branding is a vastly evolved science. There is so much of work that's gone into it. Applying those principles, those methods, those tools with a little bit of tweaking to people, that's person branding. That's all. So you have to, in order to do this, all that needs is to think of oneself as a brand. Let's look at these people. What do these people stand for? I'm not going to insult your intelligence by asking you who they are, but tell me what they stand for, each one of them. Some comments, please. What does the lady at the end, the left hand side, stand for?
Communication.
Sorry?
Communication.
Communication. Okay. What else? Others?
Second one is innovation.
Second one is innovation. What's the first, Vivek?
Pretty.
Talk show.
Talk show. Okay. Yeah. People just keep typing it in. No problem. Either way. What does this lady stand for? Let's just focus on the lady, and I want to hear different responses.
Celebrity.
Celebrity. Okay. So we heard talk show, celebrity. We heard communication. Then, what does she represent? Makreka. That's the, I don't know, is that the leftist in you speaking, Jyotirmoy?
No, that's the latest. That's the Meghan Harry business.
Abha says television entity. Okay. Priyanka has a view on all of them. So Rahul Dravid is a gentleman. Oprah is emotional, poignant, interviewing. Elon Musk is experimentation and innovation. All right. So you can pause here for a second. Okay. Let's just look at Oprah. And I'm going to scroll up from Priyanka's response. So she says emotional.
Can I just interrupt?
Yeah, sure, please.
Oprah, maybe An American Dream, The American Dream.
American Dream. Lovely. Very interesting, Neerja. Very interesting. So I'm going to throw that into the bag. So there's American Dream. There is emotional, poignant interviewing. There is television entity. There's muckraker. There's celebrity. There's communication. So far we've heard, and then there is talk show. Right. So far this is what we've heard about this lady. So do you notice something interesting here from the responses? If yes, what? What's interesting? Is there a pattern? Is there no pattern? What's it about these responses? So these answers are very, very different. Did you notice that? Each one of you has used a different adjective to describe the same person. This again is a nuance or a shade of branding. Branding yourself means that it really comes down to two individuals, right? So there is you and there's your client. Now, there has been a relationship, you've delivered something for them, you've helped them bring out a great book, but you have a certain way of working. And this way of working and what you've done is not necessarily read by everyone around you or everyone who's interacted with you the same way. So it's very, very subjective. Let's remember that. Let not anybody tell you branding is a science alone. Yes, it's a science, but it's also art and it's also subjective. So there will be imperfections, and that's perfectly fine. There are no formulae here that says, branding is equal to this plus that divided by that. That doesn't work at all. So the beauty, in fact, the richness of branding, and whether that's for a person or for a company, comes from the fact that it's in your power to decide what kind of responses you want to generate within a certain range. The only thing is, do you want those responses to be positive and in a certain direction? Or if you don't control that, if you're not in charge of your brand by yourself, then you might get all sorts of negative replies, responses. So the thing is to take charge of this, but also realize that it can be different for different people. All right, I want to move on. So millions of professionals, but really, how many of them are brands? Here, so let me just ask you here, and I want obviously honest responses because there's no scope for judging anybody here. How many of you have really thought of yourself as a brand? Priyanka says me. Nice to hear that. And who else, if you've really not thought yourself as a brand, and if you want to say something about it, welcome to do that too.
Well, I'm supposed to think of myself as a brand, but can't really get to that.
But I didn't hear.
I have been working on this idea of myself being a brand.
Okay.
Myself and my work. But I think I'm too socialist to get into that kind of a thing.
You're too socialist to allow yourself to do that, huh?
Probably. I don't know. The mindset still hasn't changed.
Abha says, I was told to do this for long, but realize the need now. Vivek says, I have the ICF group. Rinsa says, not yet, but thinking now. Kora says, no, never work towards it. Barnali says, so far not yet, but maybe I will begin from today onwards. You better, Barnali, you better. Otherwise, I will come back to haunt you. What's the point of having this session otherwise? See, this is I don't know if I should call it tragedy or what, but let me not be, there's no value judgment here. It's just that it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that most of us do not think of ourselves as brands. We just think that we are these, small fish, in a very, very large pond. That's this world. And there are so many other people out there doing exciting things, doing great stuff, and talking about it on social media to boot, right? So who are we? I'm sure many of you, all of you would have experienced this, and it's part of your thinking sometime or the other. But this is where we have to change our mindset. It is a mindset, much as I would say all of us are, if all of us are freelancers, all of us have to be salesmen all the time, salespeople all the time. Because who else is there to sell our own products, our own services? There's nobody else, right? It's like our baby. We take charge of our baby. It's our destiny that we're making. So like companies market themselves, brand themselves, market themselves, talk about themselves. There's absolutely nothing wrong in our doing this. And I think because we don't do it, I think that we fall into a negative loop. We get into a negative loop, wondering why isn't business coming? Why is this fasting and feasting happening? Tell me how many of you have heard of or experienced fasting and feasting? Quick. Yes, there is either I'm either feasting or I'm fasting. There is a fast to the. Vivek says never. So what do I mean
Most
by this?
people, Ganesh, experience this who are freelancers, because
Yes.
sometimes you get a lot of work and sometimes you're without work, and you have this famine type of period, and then sometimes you have too much to handle. I mean, I think
Yes,
most
so famine.
freelancers experience this.
Yep. Correct. That's what I'm talking about. So things like that, and having long, extended dry patches, not being able to increase our prices, increase our fees, and or not even being able to move towards desired clientele or attract them towards us, working and therefore having to work with whatever projects that land on our lap. So all of these are unfortunate outcomes, even if we don't recognize them for that, of not branding ourselves. See, this term branding might be a very kind of new agey kind of term, but believe me, I'm going to tell you a story now. Okay, I'm just telling you this very simple story, which will take us back thousands of years ago. Branding is something that originated because one farmer. Some people say this happened in Egypt, but no one's really sure. That would be just myth. But then myths are beautiful, right? So the story is this: thousands of years ago, one farmer found it very difficult to identify his cattle. All right. The cattle kept roaming around, right? So, and there are all sorts of cattle there. And many farmers had let their cattle loose on the same fields, on the same pastures. So this guy decided to make a mark on his cattle that belonged to him. All right. What did he do? He just took a piece of iron and he literally made a mark by heating this piece of iron and imprinting them with this, stamping them with some kind of pattern. So for those of us who, because we are editors, and let's just move out of this branding space and think English. What is branding? Branding also means making a mark, right? Leaving an imprint. So branding is nothing but that. It evolved because a farmer thousands of years ago wanted to differentiate his cattle from the rest. But that is something that he did for his cattle. Now it's an inside out process that we have to adopt. We have to realize, I'm not saying we are cattle, we're all tortoises, remember? But we, the tortoises, have to remember, I didn't understand that it is high time we got this branding mindset, thought of ourselves as brands, and therefore took steps to carve out an identity for ourselves. Okay. So very quickly, these are some very compelling reasons. I hope they're compelling for us to do this, for us to brand ourselves. All of us want to become or be seen as experts or some sort of specialists, I think, right? I think that's an innate, very basic, fundamental need of all of us. So you can come across as an expert, a specialist, an authority in a domain. And this is the era of clutter. Let's remember that. Okay, increasing, intense clutter. And there's a lot of flailing of arms and legs on social media, lots of information out there, lots of blogs, lots of websites. In all of this, how are you going to stand out? How are we going to carve out a space, a niche, or whatever for ourselves? Our spot under the sun. That is where branding comes in handy. So the game these days, in case you've not realized it, you just have to sit back for 10 minutes, look around, speak to a few people, and just observe action on various online fora. You will realize that the game these days is to establish and increase influence. So we've all heard of this term influencer, right? Many of many people call themselves influencers, and this is rampant in the lifestyle space, in food space, in travel. It probably started with travel, but influencer. There's so many of them calling themselves this that it's become like an epidemic. Yeah. So there is a joke. I call them. It's like an epidemic of influenza. But there are so many of them calling themselves that. That is because deep down, honestly, the race now is to influence, is to change opinions, is to make them think a certain way. And if you want to do that with some amount of result, with some amount of success, you have to grow your influence. You must know who your target audience is, you must define that, and you must grow your influence. Adding value to your target audience through your knowledge and experience is another thing that you can achieve through person branding. This branding mindset is so much about, what do I say? It's about competing with ourselves. All right, I've for the longest time not thought of anybody else as competition at all. I think it's great for us to imagine that we're competing with ourselves, and day after day, the effort is just to move the bar one notch up, one notch up, one notch up. The effort is to say, can I do a little better, 10% better today than I did yesterday? And imagine how much all those 10% will add up over a period of a month, a year, 2 years. So if you want to do this, then you will be able to add value to your target audience. In this age of clutter, I think people have lost sight of adding value. A lot of conversations on social media, a lot of posts are about, flaunting, are about saying that this is what I've done, this is what I am all about. But let's realize that one part of the essence is to add value to the target audience and to say, I have this experience and knowledge, but I want to use that to add value to you. Then another big advantage or reason for branding ourselves is to attract better leads, better business leads, better kind of jobs, better kind of projects. And we can also charge a premium for our offerings. So if some of us are in this trap of not being able to hike prices, like I said earlier, and being forced to take whatever we get, then this is something that we must very seriously think about. And the last advantage, or one of the other advantages, is that you also attract other person brands, other people who have the brand mindset, and a community grows. It's a wonderful way of thinking. It's a wonderful way of being. The person brands think of themselves as big fish, think of themselves as someone who is there to add value and who has the necessary expertise to do that with. So there is no unnecessary hesitation, there is no shame, there's no guilt, there's no false modesty here at all. There's no scope for that. And those kind of people live a different kind of life. The ideation, the conversations, the kind of things that they do, there is so much that we can learn by being in their company. So if you establish or try to start establishing yourself as a brand, acquire the mindset, you will see that you're able to connect better with other such person brands. More and more of them will appear on your radar, and then you will form your own little or large community of these brands. I'm just going to take a pause here for a minute. Again, all okay? Vivek is saying, would love to see more of you. Switch on your video. Oh, I hope that's not for me, right, Vivek? That's for other people. Okay, all okay? Yes?
Yeah.
Right. Cool. If all of this is outward, all of these are external factors, however, right? But I'd love for all of us to go deeper than this. To me, branding is inside out. It just has to come from within. And there are benefits that we must realize that we ourselves get. All right, so let's get to them. And all of these benefits are not necessarily your, what do you say, commercial, mercenary benefits. All of them may not be always that. First way that one can improve oneself, let's look at all of this as ways of improving oneself, is to lead more. All of us need not have this ambition of being leaders, of wanting to lead more, and that's perfectly fine. But there are many of us who want that. Being a brand is also about being a leader. It's about saying leadership can be in different ways. It doesn't have to be, it can be the best. It can be, the expert. It can be the guy with the biggest revenue, the person with the biggest size of business, maximum number of clients. But beyond all this, I think this is only about thought leadership. It's about a way of adding value, a way of conducting oneself in one's profession. Can we set a benchmark there? Can we lead people? Can we set trends? Can we do things that are different from others, what others do? And can we make them aspire to be a little more like us? So to me, leadership is about all of this. Do what we do, keep at it. Yes, that's right, Bernali. It helps us grow more and grow again internally. So once you acquire the brand mindset, it means that you're a student for life, and you will realize that in a very real sense. You will realize that you can't just sit still on your butt, and that's death. You'll either have to move or you'll die. So growing becomes part of our psyche, part of our frame of mind, and we are thinking of growth all the time. Here again, growth, I don't mean just business-wise, only in monetary terms, commercial terms. It's about how better do we upskill ourselves, how better do we train ourselves, what new are we learning about our profession, how have we grown as a professional. Earn more, which is obvious, I won't talk about it. Influence and impact more, I dwelt a little bit on that because this is the age of influence and impact. Influence I've spoken about, but I want to speak about impact. Impact is, and this is again a personal viewpoint, all right? I'm seeing some conversations here. Frogs jump, not sure where the tortoises do. All right. So there's a bit of banter going around. One second. Let's just see what that's about. Bernali says, I find what you're saying similar to Kaizen. Okay, improve a little bit every day. Absolutely. Abha says, I want to make a jump. Bernali, any word for a tortoise to do that? Where do you want to jump to, Abha? What kind of jump do you want to make? Do what we, okay, frogs jump, not sure where the tortoises do, something like that.
Yeah, jump to the person who's got the brand, or the cattle who's branded or whatever. Not do bit, but I've been doing bit by bit every day. Like.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, so interesting point. Why do you think I've named this session, this whole thing for tortoises? What's the reference to tortoises here?
Bit by bit.
ठीक है, okay.
Slow, steady.
Slow and steady.
Okay. And Rinsa's.
Also, I think putting your head under that shell and not really, doing anything about what you are. I think that's one way of looking at it.
You're right. All of you are right. You're saying different parts of the entire answer. All of this put together is what I mean, really. So there is the gradualness, there is the slowness of it, but there is the steadiness of it also. Step by step is what Rinsa says. Yes. And like you interestingly mentioned now, it's the habit of, kind of hiding under the rocks. Can I just go away from the crowd, far from the matting crowd, and, find my own space? And that's where I'm very comfortable, right? I'm not a very social animal, am I? No. So it's for all of these reasons that I've said this, because it's great. Yeah, great to admit that we are like this. But through a process and by doing certain things, we don't have to be tortoises anymore. That's also part of the story. But like Rinsa, I think, said, tortoises are also bloody hardy, man. Hardy animals, so they can live. There are stories, hundreds of years, thousands of years. Science has established that, right? So there is the hardiness of it all. There is the perseverance of it all. And in the fable, the famous fable that we all know of, who wins the race? Tortoise ultimately wins the race, right? So we might be under a shell, we might retreat, we might find a place under the rock. All of this is fine, but we also have certain very, very strong things, good things going for us. So I thought, for this our fraternity of editors and writers, I thought that's a great analogy. That's why I put it out there. But you will see that by the end of this presentation, you don't have to be a tortoise anymore. Don't worry, I'll help you jump. So back to why person branding. We were talking about leading, growing, earning, influence, impact. Impact is about what value do you really add? What difference do you make to that book, that manuscript that comes to you? All right. And finally, give more. To me, oh my goodness, I can't talk enough about this. Being a brand is not about what you get. Yeah, it's just not about what we get, It's about what we give. And very often, giving comes before getting. So are you able to, like I said, shape thought patterns? Are you able to share your lessons, share your experiences, your knowledge? Are you able to give somebody connections? So there are different ways in which a brand, has to give. I often think of a brand as a lighthouse, as a beacon of light. So what does that lighthouse do? It does so many things, right? Shows the way to ships to pass. So it's not just that you're helping yourself, it's about helping others too. Okay, I want to move on. Right, so do you think of yourself as a brand? Why not? That's something for you all to introspect. Some of you have given me answers. I've got a flavor of what you think. Just a note here, guys. We have about an hour, right? So I wanted to finish my rambling in about 45 minutes or 50 minutes, max 1 hour. But after that 1 hour, I want to take questions. Okay, so we are kind of crunched for time, which is why this has to be a monologue. That's how the format is, unfortunately. But this presentation, this recording is anyway going to be available for you to watch at leisure and for your friends to also watch. Okay, let me just, I'm being as loud as I can, Divya. I don't know what else to do, yeah. Is this okay? I'm shouting actually.
No, that's fine. That was at the start of the session that I had listed.
Oh, why is my very
Yeah.
chat window
And now my question was relating to that impact and fourth point, how to impact and influence.
Okay, so we'll come to that. Yeah, we'll come to that. Impact is at two levels. One impact is what? What's the core of impact? It's just doing a bloody great job. That's all, right? Are you making an impact for your client? That one client, taking it one project at a time. That's the simplest and the, what do I say? The essence of impact. But at a larger level, impact and influence work, like I explained. I gave you 4 or 5 examples of teaching, sharing knowledge, and impacting community as a whole. We will look at a few ways a little later. But in trying to establish or think of ourselves as a brand, we have to contend with a minor little matter, and that is this. Imposter syndrome, right? All of us would have gone through this, I'm sure. Have we? All of us have problems about thinking thinking of ourselves as, I don't just mean brands, but as leaders, as great, as excellent at our work, and as having done a great job with 40 books or 10 books or whatever that is earlier. We, from time to time, we have problems thinking about ourselves in this way. So that's something that we'll have to move away from. That's something that there are, of course, techniques, there are ways to do that. But very quickly, let me just ask you, can we all do one thing, please? Yeah, all of us audibly. All of you unmute yourselves now. I want all of us to say something together, all right? About 3 times. Quite loudly, with a lot of energy. Because a lot of self-talk is involved in getting rid of imposter syndrome. It's just about how we rewire our brains, our minds. Can you just say what you're seeing on screen aloud, please?
I'm worth it. I'm enough. I'm worth it. I'm worth it. I'm enough. I'm worth it. I'm worth it. I'm enough. I'm worth it.
I'm enough. I'm worth it. I am enough. I am worth it. I am enough.
I am worth it. I am enough. That's the one.
Mazedar. Oh, your voice is just echoed, man, and bounced off the walls of my room here. So, like I said, imposter syndrome, and there's a study there, and blah blah. This is universal, universal. From the so-called most successful people to everybody else. Everybody has gone through this. They go through this even today. So at the very core, I think what all of us have to realize is that I am worth it. I'm enough. No, so I can do great work. I've done very good work. I've helped so many authors. I've helped so many manuscripts become better. I've done blah, blah, and blah. And I'll just come to detailing that out a little later. But ingraining this thought in our mind will help us change our mindset. It can help us beat, and this has worked for me, this has worked for so many people. This syndrome that I don't deserve my success, that I don't deserve to grow, that I don't deserve, oh, is she paying me so much? I'm just going to be caught out tomorrow. Gosh, I just hope I don't get caught out. So these are thoughts that shouldn't come to our minds, and rescripting our minds, or retelling stories is a very important part of this.
So I have a question here. Do you think, is it okay to ask?
Of course it is. Please, ma'am.
So see, basically, I feel like this is something everyone goes through. You have the sense of satisfaction when you do your work, about the work you've done.
Yes.
And then if you're constantly learning more, looking up new things, reading new things, you also get back to that sense of self-doubt because there's so much out there, and like for me, it is that. So, I mean, the more I end up reading, the more I know, I just feel like there's so much more that I don't know because there's so much more I want to know.
Oh, sure.
And that is what brings it up. And like, so how do you, because when you know what you don't know, or that there's so much more again, so how do you still feel, how are you still supposed to feel like perfect? Or
Can I say something here?
Yeah, please, sure.
I think what Pooja has just said, I'm adding to that whatever she said. Like she said, we read. Suppose I'm at level 1 and I have cleared level 1 and I climb level 2, and that's a sense of achievement for me. But then again, I'm starting from scratch at level 2, and then again that same feeling comes in that I'm not good enough for here. And then, like, as we keep climbing our levels, I'm better at level 1 and I go to level 2, and at level 2 again I'm 0. So I've got to start from there again. So I think as we improve, as we keep growing, it's like a vicious thing that keeps coming back. Like you keep raising your self-worth, but every level you climb, again you go back to 0, and then you have to fight it all over again to come back at it. So, like, how do we? It's I know. I think something we have to keep working at. But then it pulls you down at times.
Sure. So there's no easy and quick answer that I can give you right now. It involves, all I can tell you is, it involves constant repetition of certain positive, empowering statements. But B, also very importantly, remember, being a student and not knowing what lies ahead or what are the higher levels is very different from saying or thinking that I've not done enough work or good work already. I think from my experience with all my clients, and even those who are not my clients, but where I've interviewed people, the problem is that you do not recognize the worth of what we've done so far. So whether that's in terms of certifications, or whether that's in terms of the number of books, the kind of jump that we've helped a manuscript make from where it came to us, the rough draft to the time it gets published, all of these things, so I mean the body of work and what we've achieved so far, I think we need to recognize that more and more and more. The more we kind of see that into our mind, the rest of it is, nobody's perfect. Nobody can ever finish learning. Part of the brand mindset is to say that I'm a student for life. There will always be things that I need to learn, improve, grow. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. That's very forward moving, that's very empowering. What is debilitating is to say, like I said, I've not done enough work at all. I've not taken stock of my work. I've not made a difference to people's lives. So these are things that often crop up, and that is something that we must move forward. Yeah. So I'm just giving you a simple answer, quick answer.
Can I add a word here, Ganesh? And just use the same example that Pranali used, level 1, level 2, and just say, actually, when we are at level 2, okay, when we move from level 1 to level 2, that is when we actually understand level 1. Okay.
Right.
Most of us don't understand that. When we are at level 2, we don't actually understand level 2. No matter, how many small gradations you have within level 2, it's only when we move to level 3 that we actually understand level 2. Now, it takes many years when you move step by step, and then you look back, and then you will be able to appreciate how far you've come. Okay. This is very well. I can tell you through my own experience. Okay. This is something that will definitely happen. Yes. So you just have to look back. It will give you generate a positive feeling within you.
Correct. So taking stock is really, really important. Pausing and looking back is very important along the journey. Yeah. So I'll move on. Sorry about this. Yeah. So we don't have time for all of us to repeat, but I'm going to say this out very clearly. See, these are things that I make all my clients say, and they are all part of your self-scripting thing. So I know my profession thoroughly. I add tremendous value to my clients. Clients know my worth and seek me out. these are things that have to get ingrained in us. And like we were just discussing, it's about pausing, taking stock, detailing out our work that we've done, and keep looking back from time to time. So a brand is like an iceberg, okay? So we see public persona, we see people, we see a lot of chatter on social media, we see them at events and blah, blah. And we think, oh, how do they get there? Boss, is this overnight? What has happened? Is this magic? No, there is no magic wand. There is nothing overnight. There are a lot of invisible building blocks. And I'm going to take you through those building blocks now. Yeah, that's going to be the next step of the process. I call them my process. So a brand that you see, the visible face is typically just the tip of the iceberg. What lies under the water is what the effort that goes, the time that is taken in building that brand. So I have something called the 4C method of building your personal brand. And this is something that I use with my clients, right, to help them establish themselves in their respective professions. It's just C1, C2, C3, C4, right? So 4 Cs. First is about identifying your core, the soul. I love the word soul. You know, soul is very human, very, what do you say? Timeless. Soul is supposed to be, in the Hindu philosophy, timeless, right? And it's very human. So for these reasons, I love soul. So the soul, what's your soul of brand Priyanka, brand Madhavan, brand Ganesh? This is something that many people fail to even realize that this should be done. It's very common to find people putting the cart before the horse, which is get onto social media, flail their arms and legs, start communicating, right? But all of that has a place under the sun. It's really important, and I will talk about it later. But what comes first is, boss, what are you? Who are you? Unless each one of us defines that, how are we going to speak sense? How are we going to say, this is what I need to talk about? Communication comes later. That's a consequence. The first thing is to identify and articulate a core. All right. This involves, and I have to, sorry, guys, rush through this a little bit. Yeah, but I'll still try to explain. And we can always have a conversation later, questions. This involves first identifying the professions we are in. Who are you? Who am I? Which fields and professions am I in? Is there a common thread between them? And this question applies to people who are in more than one professions. That's again common. Quite a few of us are editors come writers, editors come social media communication professionals somewhere else, X, Y, Z, right? So there are 2 or 3 parts to our professional identity. So is there a common thread between them? It's great if there is. It really helps make our brand very cogent, sharper. But if I'm in 3 unrelated professions and I can't find a common thread between them, then I'm being pulled in 3 different directions. So then that doesn't make for brand clarity for me in the market. So like I say, it's better not to spread ourselves too thin by being either in unrelated professions or by being in too many things. What's your big why? Again, I don't get it. 99% of us, me included, until a few years ago, do not ask ourselves this question. And this big why is not just about making money. You know, there are many shades to it. It's very personal. It comes from our upbringing, or the way we are wired, the way we look at the world, you know, our worldview. So it can be about making a difference, making an impact, earning money, getting creative satisfaction, simply because I'm passionate about something, or because a particular story, you know, some incident in my life triggered something in me. So finding the big purpose or the big connect with what I'm doing helps us get, you know, bonded strongly and helps us do much better in the same profession, instead of just saying that I want to make more money. So there is growth, there is money, yes, and that's important for all of us. But can we find something else that will make it very meaningful, deeply fulfilling for us to be in this business? Identifying that factor and answering that is critical. So just to recap all of this, we are talking about the first part, C1, which is identifying and articulating our core, right? So who are you? What's your big why? Why do you want to build your brand? That's related to the why that I spoke of. Now I want to take my example here. Yeah, having said so much, I'm going to move into taking stock. All right. We spoke of the imposter syndrome. We spoke of getting the brand mindset, taking stock of the work we've done, and looking back, right? So I'm going to look back for myself now. And this is a live example of brand Ganesh Vanchishwaran. So this is the process that I followed for myself, right? In a very simplified kind of way. I've had to omit some steps here. My track record is this. I started off as an advertising planner, and I spent a few years in advertising agencies, working for other brands across industries, maybe about 25, 28 industries, as an advertising brand planner, and then as a brand consultant in consulting outfits. And then I moved into journalism when my book was released. This book called The Underage CEOs came out in 15 October, 5 years ago, roughly, more or less. And that's when I said, okay, let me also start writing. There's a lot of juice in me, and writing is something that I can use to make an impact, entertain, inform, and derive creative satisfaction for myself. So I became a journalist, wrote for all these pubs that you see on the screen, and a few more. And then I moved into editing, because then I realized, boss, if I'm a good writer, then I had bloody well be a good editor too. They are, to my mind, in a very large way, they're two sides of the same coin, in a very broad sense. Two sides of the same coin. And I realized that I'm pretty good at, while there is creativity on the one part, and therefore, being able to express things and ideas very creatively, I also found structure, structural thinking, the ability to compartmentalize, the ability to look at nuances and bring order and method to a manuscript. So I said, let me become an editor. So I became an editor, right? And then I've edited books on various themes. By and large, I do non-fiction. I've worked on, I think, 2 or 3 works of fiction so far. That's it. But otherwise, I want to focus on non-fiction. Then I've spoken at various fora and different panel moderated stuff. And one sec. Yeah. Okay. And I also, like Vivek said earlier, I helped organize the BBLF, the Bangalore BizLit Fest, for 3 years. We didn't have it last year, practically not. So this is what I am. This is what I've done. Mota moti, of course, one has to drill deeper into this, which I did. But this is the snapshot. And then I said, and this is something that I encourage you also to do for yourself, right? I spoke to clients. So taking feedback from clients and seeing what they think of us, understanding what they really feel. Like I said early on, I'd love to hear the adjectives that these guys use when they describe me. Those adjectives, the summation of all of them is my brand, right? You will remember my saying this early on. So I went back to my clients, and I do this on a regular basis. This is not one time. I encourage you to think of this as a habit, make it a habit. After every project, speak to the client concerned, send them a feedback form, have a phone call. I just don't stop with a feedback form. In fact, I sometimes don't do that at all, but I do speak to them, right? To say, what is good about this project? What do you like working with me? In what ways did I add value, impact the brand, impact your book? And is there something that I did not know? Is there something that seems to be a challenge with me? Did I not deliver in certain ways? So it's a very objective, honest conversation. I encourage all of you to do this with every project as soon as you finish it, right? Not later. So thoughts are fresh in the client's mind. Well, anyway, this is what I've said this about myself, right? So what clients say about me: detail-oriented, deep knowledge, wide experience, proactive, da 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 da. So then I said, let me quickly do a SWOT, right? Which is strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. That's the next step. Yeah. So my strengths are creative thinking, written and oral communication, experience in branding. I love different forms of expression. I love to coach people. All right. My weaknesses, I kind of deep down fear technology. Again, it's a very tortoise thing, I think, right? So all of us, I can see all of us possibly doing that, fearing technology, or at least not being very comfortable with it. We may not really fear it, but we don't also understand it well. At least that's the case with me. Opportunities, gig economy, explosion of freelancers across the world, a pressing need of entrepreneurs and corporate professionals to communicate with various audiences, the need to stand out in a cluttered scenario, and people's need to tell the world about themselves. See, this is something that I had to sit back, ask questions, speak to people, collect info, and then come to a conclusion. all of this is the outcome of that process. And threats. So strengths are things that I'm good at. Weakness is something that I fear or something that's my limitation. Opportunities are things that I see outside in the world, in my profession, out in the outside arena that works for me, that I think are plus points. And threats are things that obviously I feel threatened about or I feel very wary about in the environment. So if you notice, this gig economy and explosion of freelancers, I'm seeing that as an opportunity as well as a threat. There are two shades to this. The threat comes from the clutter, the fact that many people would possibly be jumping into the profession that I'm in, and then how do I stand out? Whereas on the opportunity side, it also means that companies are open to farming out projects. There are so many more people writing books, so many more people looking for content, etc., right? So it works both ways. And then again, through a process of introspection and articulation and trial and error and all of that, there's a process behind this. So this is my core. So when I said C1 is about identifying a brand core, it is to answer all these questions. This is it's like a media kit, So when you send out a media kit, writers must be familiar with this, journalists among you. You have to send certain key details about that. And that's your identity as a journalist, right? This is your identity as a brand. For myself, I'm an excellent writer, writing coach, voiceover artist, editor of books, and speaker. So I'm in all of these professions. It's been a gradual, steady, pushing of the envelope, exploration, and therefore all of this is what I'm doing. All of these are tied together by the thread. What's the thread that ties all of this together? It is self-expression, right? So I see myself as a catalyst of people's self-expression. Who do I serve? I serve my focus. I can serve anybody, but this is where I think my market is. Startup founders, freelancers, coaches, trainers, consultants, speakers, and senior corporate leaders. So this is, to my mind, this is where my skills are most required. These are the guys I can add most value to, and therefore this is probably where I'll find most satisfaction and money. So who do I serve is about my target audience. What do I offer? How do I help you? I help you bring out your message impactfully and present the best version of yourself to your target audience. In doing so, I help you create the right perceptions about yourself. Why choose me? You must choose me. So this is, in my mind, a compelling reason for setting myself apart, right? This is what sets me apart. My creativity, my empathy, which is extremely important in the editing world, depth of knowledge, passion, intuition, and solution mindset. So I'm very intuitive, and this is something clients have also said of me. I empathize very well with them. I also work with a solution mindset. So the point being that all of this is unique or at least strong points of yourself. And these are things that will put together, identify you as a brand. And this has to come from the work that you've done and what clients think and feel about you. So after this exercise, this session is over, I'd love for you to just do this for yourself, right? Write down your personal brand core. Who am I? My positioning statement. Who do I serve? What do I offer? How do I help you? And why choose me? Okay, so Vivek, where are we on time? I need about 10 minutes to wrap this up. I just don't want to let it go like this, please. Are we okay?
Yeah, you can take your 10 minutes.
10 minutes, but I'll just quickly give a snapshot. Okay. So having identified the core, the next is to communicate. If you are a brand and if you want to put out your message out there, then you better do it steadily. You better do it, right? Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. It's like, I love to sing, but I only sing in the bathroom. I sing in my balcony. So who's going to hear me? It's just my family. It's just me that's going to hear myself, right? That also very often happens to professionals. And this is contrary to the principle of branding. You think of yourself as a value adder, as someone who can do great work for people out there, then go into it with a service mindset. Go into it with the mindset of serving people. So it's not about you. Make it about them. Make it about your target audience. And therefore, if you have something to say, you better say it well, right? So it's about communication. Leverage online channels to the hilt, so they're targeted, cost-effective, and easy to use, but focus on one or two and do justice to them. So there's a plethora of channels here, an explosion of channels. We all know that, and the trick is not to be, not to avoid all of them, or at the same time be present in too many of them. I see a lot of people making either kind of mistake. Thing is to be out there, but see what works for you, where your target audience is very active and very consistently out there, and put yourself out there. Go be on that same channel. So for me, I'll tell you what works for me. It's Facebook and LinkedIn. These are the two social media channels that work a lot for me. The other channel, which is not social media, is about webinars and events. I make it a point to attend them. It's important for us to look at it as the world is not just social media, and that's a false perception. But there is a lot of action which quietly takes place at events, webinars, offline, online seminars, conferences, and all of that. So as far as online channels are concerned, it's great to take two. Those two should be places where your target audience is, and for us to start communicating that. Yeah, like I said, your choice of channels will depend on your TG. Each channel has its own dynamics. Facebook is different from Twitter, from Instagram, from LinkedIn, from blah, blah. So before we dive in, it's great, it's important to understand the dynamics of that channel, figure out how people are posting, what are they saying, what's the tone and tenor. So LinkedIn is about very serious professionals who are there for the purpose of work and work-related conversations by and large. So that's the overriding nature of LinkedIn. Facebook is far more social, informal. It's a blend of personal and professional. Twitter has its own aura, its own unique characteristics. So there's a lot of people are very outspoken on Twitter. There are a lot of extreme opinions on Twitter. So one has to understand and imbibe all of this before saying this is where I need to be and how can I tailor my messages into this. Create a website for yourself. I'm not going to spend more than a few seconds. If you don't have a website, please get a website. It's like a window to your store. Imagine you're a store. You have great products to sell, but there is no bloody window. Yeah, it's all barred from the street. So how are people going to get a glimpse of what you have? So create a website for yourself. Social selling. Welcome to social selling. I'm going to focus on LinkedIn for a bit here. And this whole concept works very well for all social media, but all the more so for LinkedIn. It is about saying, can I make selling, can I not hard sell? Can I make it in a very social kind of context? All right, so I'm going to sell. Ultimately, the aim is to get my business, get inquiries, get your projects, but I will do it in a very social sense. So it means that I will smartly, if you can look at point number 4 on that slide here, it's about smartly plugging my offering into conversations. I don't want to dive in and then, shout from the top of my voice saying, hey, I do this, I do this, I do this, I'm CIP certified, I'm a this journalist, I'm an editor. Aisa nahi hai. It is to first hear, first listen to conversations going around on LinkedIn, see who else is on my feed, and comment on their conversations, comment on their posts, try to see if I can add value to them, and then very smartly find openings to portray my own offerings, showcase them, say that I've won something, say that the book that I edited has come out, or say that I do this or do that. So that is the essence of social selling. It means giving before you get, asking for help. It's realizing that all of us can collaborate and operate as social beings. That's human in nature, and we engage with an intention to add value. So there's no hard sell, there's no pushy talk. This is social selling, or the essence of it, right? So we never preach, we don't sell hard. Again, after the session is over, why don't you just go back to LinkedIn and check something called the Social Selling Index. LinkedIn has SSI, and you can also measure it. You can get your score on 100. Anything above 60 is great. If you're on 60 or above that, it's good. 80 plus is great. All right. It means it sees how complete your profile is, what kind of posts are you putting out, what kind of conversations are you participating in, the quality of your comments, and how many skill endorsements you have and all that. So at the very basic level, what I would encourage each one of you to do is to complete your LinkedIn profile, make that as solid as possible, see that all the fields there are filled in with meaningful, relevant stuff for your target audience, keeping in mind your profession. And once you've filled in your profile and completed that, there is something called an all-star profile. LinkedIn has that. Try to achieve that. All-star is that all your boxes are ticked well. Then find the right people there, keeping again your profession, your target audience, your niche in mind, your brand in mind, and over a period of time, build relationships with them. Post relevant insights and other useful information, participate in conversations triggered by others. So it's not just about posting. It's about commenting, it's about liking, it's about saying, hi, that's a great job. Oh, very nice. Or it's about finding a connection for someone. If someone seeks help, you might want to chip in and help that person out. All of this is important for us to do, not just on LinkedIn. I'm taking LinkedIn as an example, right? But doing it on Facebook, doing it anywhere else is so important to building our brand. And you will realize that once you do this for a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, something will start changing. People will gather around you. You will participate in more conversations. People will seek you out. The number of people who look at your profile will go up. There'll be messages saying, hey, can we connect and become Facebook friends or LinkedIn connects? You know, all of this is going to strengthen your brand. So you'll be more visible, more participative, more trustworthy. The core of all of this branding is to say, I am very trustworthy. You can trust me. I want to build trust in you. So this mixture of things is going to help you do that. All right. Quickly, let's look at some rules of thumb. All right. All you have to do to start with. Yeah, there's no science here. There's nothing complicated here. Very simply, rules of thumb, 10 minutes a day to comment on or share other people's posts and help them. All right. Give them a comment, give them an answer, share. 20 minutes on 2 or 3 days a week to post your original views. So I'm saying this is where you will post something. And by posting, I mean, it can be from your experience. It can be an article that you share with an extra comment, bringing in your own perspective. It could be something like that. You could talk about a trend in the industry. And 1 hour on the weekend to write a 500 to 800 word piece, correct? Can I see some comments now saying, can you do this, please? Just this. How much of this seems doable to you? Rules of thumb. 10 minutes a day can you spend on commenting, on sharing, on participating? 20 minutes a day can you spend on posting, and that's for 2 or 3 times a week. That's it, not every day. And once a week, I encourage you to please write, and I'm not saying write an article, right? It can even be a 300-word post. It can be a 500-word post, something that comes from you, right? That's it. So there are types of content that I think I will probably close with this section with that. We have to build connections, relationships, and there is content that showcases experience. There is content that is slice of life. You can ask questions, no problems. You can put out your achievements and then talk about setbacks and any other content that is useful to your teaching. All right, so that's C2. I'm going to skip the rest of it, but the presentation is available, right? Because it's being recorded. So all of this is something I'm going to skip. C3 is being consistent. Consistency is the opposite of the enemy of procrastination. It's the enemy of the imposter syndrome. It's the enemy of many things. It's like compound interest. All of us have heard of compound interest, or maybe some of us have. It means that if you put in 1 rupee, into your PPF account or bank account today, and I don't put in any money at all for the next 6 months or 3 months, and then I put in 1 more rupee, right? After 3 months, after 6 months, after 1 year. So that's one model. What's the other model? The other model is I put in 1 rupee today, I put in 1 rupee tomorrow, I put in 1 rupee the day after, I put in 1 rupee the day after. I do that, let's say 340 days, not 365. I'm giving myself a holiday of 25 days. But if I do that for 340 days a year, which method do you think will net me more returns, get me more money? The latter, right? That's what it is. So it's about making a simple communication plan for yourself. It's an Excel sheet, all right? Build in activities, like I said, just follow those rules of thumb. Pick out areas that you want to talk about that come from your brand, that will express your brand very strongly, very clearly. Make it daily, fortnightly, weekly activities. Review this every month and just start easy. Ease into it. Don't try to do too much, but grow into the process. Grow into it. It's like breaking in a new shoe. All right. If you start doing too many things, then you're going to say, hey, it hurts and I don't want to do this. But acclimatize this into this and then keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. So the returns really come from A, identifying your core clearly, identifying and answering those questions that I put out there. B, from being steady and consistent, showing up for ourselves regularly. This is not for anybody else. Bloody hell, this is for myself. I need to grow. I need to achieve my objectives. There are things that I want to do. I'm passionate about my profession, right? So I bloody well show up for myself. And C4 is all about conviction. This is something I touched upon earlier, but it's worth repeating. It's not about arrogance. It's not about any kind of vainglory, but it's about the convinced. I'm convinced that I fix an important need, for my targeted audience, for the people I work with. And boss, they need a great editor. I mean, they're telling the story of their lives, man. And that's very important for them. So, and there's a paucity of good editors out there. I know that. I'm here to fix that. I'm here to say, can I take your book from this raw form to a published state? Can I see it through, thereby helping you tell the world the story of your life? That could be something about your experience, your profession, a real story, it's a memoir, whatever it is. That kind of thinking, that this is also what I meant when I said you're expressing, you're coming in with a service mentality. You want to serve. You meet an important need of theirs and you help fix an important problem in their lives. Saying this or coming with this mindset builds conviction rather than vanity. So you're confident but not arrogant, and you operate from a place of authenticity, strengths, expertise, and value addition. So I think I'll close this, right? Just summarizing the 4C method of building your personal brand. Find your core, communicate, be consistent, and show conviction. And that's it, the truth. I think I'm going to stop and by just showing you one last slide, which is that you are a tortoise no more. So it's really possible over a period of time and by adhering to certain principles and the steps that I've outlined here to actually be what we really are. So we're all lions and lionesses out here, and I mean it very, very truly mean it. It's just that we have to see ourselves as that and start roaring, making our presence felt. And it's eminently possible. Thank you very much. Questions, please.
Yeah, thanks Ganesh for a very interactive session, and over to the audience for the questions. They can unmute themselves and ask their query.
Thank you, Madhavan. Thank you, Venkat sir. But questions, I'm also interested. Yeah, thanks for the
Ganesh, could you speak on sustaining these processes? Because that is one of the, it's a very broad thing, but some tips, whatever, sustaining this sort of attitude, culture, whatever. So
the answer, it's like this, the answer that I'm going to give you now will be in essence broad, but I've tried to make it very practical. I made it granular for you when I said that there is a mindset question thing to be tackled. We went through all of that here, right? The brand mindset, acquiring that. But B also is to the rules of thumb in communicating. So one is at this transactional level, one is at a mindset level. I think there is dope that I touched upon by saying that at a practical level, all you have to do is, boss, if that's what you mean now, 10 minutes a day for X, 20 minutes on 2 or 3 days to do Y, for 1 hour or once a week to do Z. That's one way of sustaining it, because it is simple, it is doable, it easily fits within your routine. The mindset wala issue is the other part of it, which also I've dealt with at length. There is about crossing the imposter syndrome, about taking stock of work you've done, looking back from time to time, taking feedback from clients, and putting all of that into your self-talk, and then creating your core. The other thing that I spoke about is about how do you add value, right? Every single day, I tell myself, I've done a good job yesterday, and I'm awake and I'm all excited about today because I want to add value to somebody. Because there are two manuscripts here. There are three personal branding clients that I have. There are articles that I have to send out. But whatever I do, I'm adding value to that particular client. That mindset really, I think, is what counts. Have I answered your question?
Yes, but that thing is there. Building up a clientele is a really painful process. In the sense, I'm saying, going through a personal branding experience, and I've gone through in the last 1 year. And yes, you build your website, you build, but then beyond that, pushing on to it's a really long process. It's just a comment, probably.
He just wants you to give him your magic wand. Your magic wand. You can give it to him.
Yes, you're right, Jyotirmoy.
Jyotirmoy wants that actually.
Venkat sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, there's no magic wand. But
I know there is.
Your comment is valid. It is a process, boss. You have to stick with it, in order to see results.
That's it.
But the results will come, and honestly,
keeping the faith is a bit of a job. Yeah.
Correct. Keeping the faith in the process, in the steps involved, and therefore abiding by them.
Yeah, I think probably the process is more important than the goals. Probably.
Let's see. Can I add something here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The way I look at it, I'm going through the same process problem. Okay. But having been in a companies for so many years, I'll tell you how I look at it as a practical problem. That what Jyotirmoy is explaining. Okay. So in a company, we have different departments. Somebody doing the recruitment, somebody chalking out the plan for the company for the next few years. Okay. And you have somebody doing recruitment, somebody doing the financial planning, somebody doing the sales and marketing, and actually employees doing the actual work. Okay. Now, all this has to be done by one person, and this one person does all this, then the actual time left to our work is very little. This I see is the practical problem here, and sometimes I feel it's actually funny, silly, actually, but it works for some people. It doesn't work for some people. I mean, these are some of my thoughts.
No, I agree with you, Venkat sir. That's perfectly valid. We are, Chaprasi se chairman tak sab kuch hum hi hai na. We are all of that. But there are at this again. We have to try out different methods. We have to acquire a certain mindset. Compartmentalization of all these duties is very important. So setting aside time is important. But I'm saying that if we do this, the front ending of our brand, understanding what the brand is, getting that mindset, and that helps us acquire business, makes it very easy or far easier. It doesn't make it very easy. It makes it far easier than otherwise. I think if we can crack that big part of the puzzle, then there are solutions for the other parts of the puzzle. There are the solutions. Why? There are virtual assistants available today, and today we are really talking about an era where virtual assistants are a reality. I know many editor friends, many other people who have employed them. Robotics has come in, automated technology has come in. So there is a solution for every part of the puzzle. But I think where it all starts and what I'm talking about today, or all of us are talking about today, is the biggest part where human intervention is still required. I can't automate this, this whole part of branding myself. No, I wish I could, but I can't. So spending some time in thinking about this and therefore sustaining activities related to this pays off a lot.
The way you have structured it, the C1 to C4, I think that is very, very logical.
Thank you. I've tried to make it very, something that will fit into our lifestyle, and also from start to finish, saying this comes first, then this comes second, 3, 4. So in a very process kind of manner.
So if I may, I'd like to add something here. This might make you happy, but one of my realizations is that a lot of innovations, they come out of need, but a lot of need also comes out of a sense of laziness. And we may not like it, but a lot of things that get invented are because of that, right? So a lot of your creative solutions will come out of the fact that you don't want to go through that trouble.
Correct.
So maybe you should take it seriously that you don't want to do it, and then figure out how you won't do it, but still have it done. And you might not immediately get that answer, but you will. So invariably, for me, what I had realized is that I don't like the idea of tweeting, like, or I forget, or those things are there. And then in time, when I decided, okay, I am going to at least use technology to my advantage,
Right.
I realized that Twitter does have that option of you logging it at a certain time, but it will get posted at a time that you wanted it to get posted at. So maybe some of these solutions might make it less daunting for you. So right now, and this is a very different example from whatever personal branding or whatever we want to do, but like at my home level, now these days I've taken over all of the cooking and everything from my mom.
Okay.
Right. So just like saying you would allot a certain time for Twitter, what I do at home is I allot like my first 2 hours in the morning, and then I'm done with that, kitchen work. And then I'm back on to everything else I want to do. So whatever you dislike, maybe dump it all together, finish it at that 1 hour, 2 hours in the morning. See if technology can assist you in some way so that the rest of the day is the way you want it to be, the way you like it to be. So it's like, it's like, one shot of your Karela juice and then everything else that you like. But maybe something like that, if you can figure out for yourself, and you will know what are the things that you hate most. And sometimes, if you're fortunate enough, there are people who will like the things you hate, and there's no harm in asking for help. Like I've written, like part of my book was a collection of biographies where we were trying to explain certain traits that certain people had, and how it helped them, like the kind of they were, because of their personal traits, they were able to create a kind of culture for the organization, and then that culture helped them go forward. But the whole point of mentioning any of this is that one thing I learned from some of them is that they were very good at delegating. They became very successful because they realized they either hate certain things or there are people who are much better at it. So maybe out there, I mean, everyone's work doesn't have an outsourcing component, but if there's something you really hate that much, or there's something that is really not worth your time, then see if you can outsource it even to an intern. Like
yes. So these options are all possible, and which is why I'm saying that we are living in a very automated, even robotics-driven kind of environment now, and there are answers to every part of the puzzle. So if you want to schedule your social media posts, if you want to do that, there are tools available for that. So there are the automated tools. There are other tools involved and available for different parts of this entire branding process, and for anything else also. That's for sure. And the thing about the rules of thumb that I put out there is recognizing that yes, it might be unpleasant, it might be uncomfortable, and we are after all still tortoises, blah blah blah. So there is a bit of challenge in getting into that mode. Yes. So which is why I said we have to ease into it. Now, when it comes to technology and automation, again, it's a double-edged sword. Or I think that different people react differently to technology. I am a little phased by technology, right? Most of you might also be that kind, but there are several others out there who use technology very easily, who adapt very easily to it. So when it comes to automation, I think it's great to recognize that there are tools available and to explore them and find out for ourselves what's our comfort level. How much do we want to delegate to them? How much do we want to delegate to somebody else? Therefore, are the returns better or not? So that I think is a very personal call to be taken, but the tools are available. Yes.
Hi, hi Ganesh. I want to ask something. It's been a very insightful presentation, and I am definitely going to work on the C4s that you have presented. But to be very honest, I think there are some things that I'm going to struggle with. The personal things that I have to do, working on myself, my internal self, I think I'll be able to do. But I think as an introvert, I'll be struggling with that part where I have to project myself, where I have to like to be that salesman for myself. I think I will find that a little challenging. So, can you give us a few tips on how to overcome that? Because like I would definitely work on myself, but that it's kind of scary to like just go and project yourself to a lot of, just like project yourself to the universe like without knowing. I think I struggle with that personally.
Acha, so you're saying in what way can I project myself to the world? Is that what you're saying?
How do I overcome this personal fear of like interacting, like projecting myself
Okay. ठीक है.
to the outside?
Okay. So, see, much of this has to be crossed internally. This whole thing about branding is, first of all, an internal journey before we move outwards. To move inwards, we have to discover and cross a lot of hurdles inwards. And I don't think there is time enough to talk about that, Barnali. But what I can give you is the outwardness of the whole thing. Talk about that. Imagine that. See, this whole thing about social media. No, let me give you an analogy. It's like being in a small room of people. All right. So you're at home, you're at a friend's home, you're in an office, you're wherever. But imagine that this is just a small room of people. So there might be 8 other people out there, 5 other people, 16 other people in that room, right? How do you ease into that room? How do you make a place for yourself in that set of 8 or 10 or 12 people? Is how you should ask yourself, is what you should ask yourself. That's all there is to it. Do not imagine that this is one large ocean of people out there, and so many people sitting critically, with this what do you call that? A magnifying glass, waiting to pounce on you, waiting to judge you. That is totally wrong. So one thing that I found works for me and for many other people that I work with is to think of it as a room and to think of it as a people with friends there. And I just have to say hi, hello, ease into the conversation. So what would I typically do? I would stand on the periphery first. I wouldn't barge in with my opinion, right? So I would stand on the periphery. And then I would venture, that's right. Yes, you're right. Oh, I like that. So I would venture responses like this. This in the social media format is nothing but liking and commenting. All right. So today I encourage you to do this. Go to LinkedIn or go to Facebook or whatever platform you want to be on and participate in conversations. Just do only this for a week. Only this.
Okay. Yeah, Ganesh, how do you draw the line between overselling and branding yourself?
Yeah. Okay. So
what's the thin line between that?
Okay. Can I just quickly complete her answer? I think that's important for her. Just a minute. So just do that. After which you will gain confidence because people will then reply back, answer, acknowledge your replies. You're more comfortable, then you venture your own opinion, which means start posting occasionally, start saying, giving out your perspective. So that's the quick answer that I can give you. That's how you ease into or overcome this fear of putting yourself out there. Yes, Cora. Now to your question, please.
Yeah, I was asking, how do you draw the thin line between overselling and branding yourself?
Because overselling is what, overselling is you have in your face messages, and I'm sure you might have seen it on your feed. You might have seen advertisements in the newspaper. So they say their feed is all about, I have this service, I have that service, I'm launching this, or I've done that, I finished the certification, or I won an award. Correct? So is that relatable?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying this is overselling. This is being full of yourself. But instead of saying that, what if I were to recognize that on my feed there are writers, there are editors, there are corporate professionals, there are whoever, right? Children's book authors, there could be anybody, academic publishers. So I am participating in conversations and I'm saying if they're talking about a particular need of theirs, or if they're saying that, hey, this is becoming increasingly difficult in a certain way, if they're talking about a trend of that industry, I will talk about it. I will participate, right? In this, there might be a chance to therefore plug in my offering and say, hey, you know what? I take up this kind of editing, So do you want to have an offline conversation? Do you want to exchange messages? We can take this offline. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is simply helping them by finding a connection that they're looking for. So there are different ways in which you're not just talking about your own book and your work, but you're also trying to actually address the need. That is the difference. A brand does the latter, it does not do the former. Does that quickly answer your question?
Yeah, I guess, yes.
Ganesh Madhavan has a query. Does the brand life cycle process work for personal brands also?
Does the brand life cycle process work for personal brands too? Yes, by and large, Madhavan, they would. By and large, they would. There are tweaks and differences, of course, but net, yes, they do. That process works. And there are other questions. I'm trying to see what else is there.
Yeah, good to see a lot of members for the first time today. Dharmendra is there. And
nice.
He can help the editors with a lot of automation. Like he does a lot of pre-editing. So we have been talking of automation to create more time or to take care of certain tasks.
Right.
So he can help us with that. And we have Santosh Matthew Paul also. So can we have your feedback for the session or some queries or comments?
Yeah, I mean, I have a very low level query. That is, since you mentioned, even one slide you mentioned LinkedIn, can your thoughts on how to build a strong headline on LinkedIn for editors? You know, the headline that you put on LinkedIn.
I don't think I can answer that here. Yeah, I mean, not enough information, not enough time, honestly.
Okay.
But yeah, so like I was saying, I have an offer to make all of you. I'll be happy to coach people who are interested, who want to build their own brands. I'm definitely willing to do that at a very special fee because you're all ICF members. I can definitely think of doing that. So if you want any help on a sustained basis, or if you want to build your LinkedIn profile, your co-brand, brand core, your whatever, the things that I spoke about, and then you can set the ball rolling. I'm definitely willing to do that at at a fee that works for you. I know we all don't have so much money, editors and writers especially, right? So without burning a hole in your pocket, I can take that up. We can explore that, not a problem at all. But honestly, I don't have enough information right now to give you the answer here. We need to delve a lot into your backstory. There are questions to be asked. There are frameworks that I have not shown you today that need to be filled. So thoda usme process hai, right? But that's an offer that I'm making to all of you.
Okay,
there are
thank
other
you.
questions that I want to just address. Please, I'm just scrolling up here. एक minute.
Working on that C1 should help you to come up with something for LinkedIn. I think the short answer will be that.
Exactly. So C1 is it's critical that you get it right for you, for you. And that's not the same for me. It can't be anywhere close. It can't be close for other people. So usme there are lots of nuances that come from who you are, what you've been through in life, what are your intentions, what is your purpose and stuff like that. So wo sara thoda process karke then we feed that into it, then we articulate it. Does the brand life cycle? I address that. Used to be outspoken and active on social media, Rinsa says, but somewhere along the way lost confidence. And now I am really a tortoise. Although work-wise, I'm fine. Your words have helped me think I have to start again. Yes, and I wish you all the best. Yes, you should maybe restart, reboot. Rebranding can be more difficult than branding. Arun's question. Can be, need not be. So maybe, which means it all depends on why you want to rebrand and what do you want to rebrand yourself as. If it involves a wide departure, a large departure from where you've been and what you've done so far. So for instance, I'm an editor. If I want to get into software programming, or if I want to get into public speaking, professional speaking, or if I want to get into something else, there is a gap. If I want to get into writing, I might still find it easier to rebrand myself and to incorporate writing into my current editing avatar. But to get into software coding, to get into strategy consulting, to get into kuch or something else, that becomes difficult, right? So like I said, why do you want to rebrand yourself? And from what to what are the questions? And therein lies the challenge. Can be difficult, need not be difficult, depending on what the answers are. Suchira says, strategizing the content and placement of your content is vital for not overselling yourself. Yes, it's a question of timing, as in how often do you write, post, place the content? What is that content about? the tone of that content, right? I can, if I come across as very in your face and too full of myself, then that doesn't do. So that serving mentality, value add mentality has to come in through content, timing, placement, and tone. Cora says, what's the name of your book? Is it on branding? No, Cora, the name of my book is The Underage CEOs. It's a story of very young Indian entrepreneurs who eschewed the corporate way of life, conventional career path, and set up enterprises at the age of 21, 22. That is a big story for me. So I've written about that.
But Madhavan mentioned the name of a book on branding. Madhavan, can you please share that?
What happens when a client decodes your subject matter expertise, economics, while your expertise lies in marketing? It's almost like a client deciding your core. Of course it is. Of course. And that's a power that you should not let go of. You know, that should be in your hands. But I didn't get the context in which you're saying this. Why would a client decide that your subject matter is economics when it is marketing? That's not clear. Yes, Madhavan, The Underage CEOs by HarperCollins is what I'm talking about. That's my book. Any other questions?
Ganesh, I wanted to clarify my question. When these clients, they give you a test at the beginning of the empaneling you as a freelancer, and they have several paragraphs which they're given for editing. And out of the several good paragraphs that you have edited as a part of your test process, they decide that okay, economics was the best, and they give you economics, while your expertise, your experience has been either marketing and HR, or your expertise has been into medical editing because you've done it for 10 long years. And then the client decides, no, it's economics and finance is the best because you also have an MBA behind you. But the core subjects in MBA was marketing and marketing and HR. And you find that for 3-4 years you're stuck in a subject which you really haven't understood that well, even during your academic years or when you're editing. So something clicks in your editing, and then that's where you are stuck in the last 4 or 5 years. But then how do you move out of that? Like I say, imposter syndrome, because I'm never too sure if my editing is good. The feedback comes back very good. So that's where it's confusing. How do you brand yourself? What is it that you want to be, and what is it that a client wants to be?
So see, well, there are options, there are alternatives available here. I first want to know whether this happens often. Does it?
Well, this has happened 3 years back, and I'm now stuck with editing economics, which I don't really understand too well.
But that's one client. No, that was one client, right?
Yes, that was one client, and then well, it has so happened that the client keeps you so busy that you really don't have time to branch out and find other clients.
So then you have the choice of saying, this can't be defining my brand, this is not what I am about and all that, and that's a call you can take. Therefore, you can seek out projects that are about editing stuff that is in humanities or marketing or wherever else you want to be. But this is one client. Why are you stuck with only that client? That doesn't have to limit you, right?
It's true, but then again, it is the fear of seeking out more clients when you really don't, because you just have these 20 hours or 18 hours of work that you can really put into editing. And then it's like, trying to bite, more than what you can chew. So that is one fear which has really, despite knowing the core values, despite knowing where your strengths lie, you're stuck with the client, maybe the comfort zone that you are into. So it's this thing about not really wanting to branch out and get more clients for yourself, or do you need to have people working with you to handle the volume? So it's the fear of overselling, like somebody was saying, Cora, I think, saying overselling, or finding more clients, because your name is already established in certain pockets of say companies or things like that. So I don't know whether I'm able to put myself clear, but I have the fear of extra volume flowing in just because you project yourself differently, and whether I can handle that part of the work.
So one part that I did get was about being slotted as an economics editor, which is not what you want, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So for that, you could try taking on, of course, it involves some juggling of time and all that, but you could try taking on marketing related and going after those projects. You know, like I said, editing marketing material and slowly easing into that. I would think you need to establish a body of work there. It's a matter of finding a couple of projects, 3 projects, ekad project, you know, and then one thing will lead to another.
Okay.
So actively going after seeking that out will net you one project first, then the second, then the third, and slowly you can move your focus away from economics. You know, you can unhitch yourself from here.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how you should do it, but you should direct it. You should take the onus on yourself.
Okay. So that means purely starting from the beginning.
In a sense, yes, for marketing as where domain expertise is called for in editing of that material, yes, you will possibly be starting from kind of scratch. But hey, all of editing of marketing is not completely different from editing economics. Forget the subject part, but there are many principles of editing that you will still apply, right? So, being an editor for X number of years, so some bit of that equity you will still carry forward.
Okay.
Yeah, Deepali, we are planning an informal session on a weekday evening, so we can discuss more on that.
I understand, because my question is getting longer and longer, so I think we should get into a one-to-one also.
And I think many editors might be facing this problem, so we'll try to address that. And Ganesh, I also wanted to mention that Pooja, who has joined us today, she co-hosted the 2020 BBLF. So I think it was done online.
Yes, it was done in a smaller format online, correct. She was one of the co-hosts. I know that, yes.
Oh, wow. Vivek, I didn't know you found out. By the way, so you're telling Ganesh that he obviously knows about it. And in fact, I didn't know about BBLF until Ganesh told me about it.
Yeah, that was in 19, right? If I remember right. 19 or 18? 19 mein tha, na?
Just 1 second. There's a disturbance. I'll just get back to you guys 1 second.
We can take that. Anybody else? Kuch, not a question, maybe just an opinion. You want to venture something? Kuch bolna chahte hain, you want to say something?
Thanks, Ganesh. I think everyone has shared their opinion, and it was a nice, enriching, interesting, interactive session. Lots of discussion at the end.
Yes, it was very interactive and I loved it. Thank you so much, guys, all of you.
And this discussion that happens at the end, I actually loved this the most.
Yes.
And not to say that whatever happened earlier was not good, it was excellent. And next week, like we are going international. We are like our speaker, she's from Australia. She's a Japanese translator, and she will be talking about how do we edit translated works. So basically talking about editing from a multicultural perspective, and it's going to be a chirpy session. She has some nice birds which always like lurk in the background. So that's why we titled the session as Editing Translations from a Multicultural Perspective, a chirpy session with Sara Katauji from Australia. And Saturday, again, like our speaker, although she is Indian, she's an ICF member, Indu Guzman. She's based in US, and she will be talking about third culture kids of nowhere and everywhere. Like she has been in so many different countries, so she will share what her experience has been, and we should take out time for that session also. It's a break-free series. Monday to Friday we work lots of long hours, so take a break on Saturday evening at 4 p.m. and do join us on Sunday at 11 a.m. again. It was good to see you all, and have a nice day.
Yes, good to see all of you. Thanks for participating. Thanks for listening and asking questions. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ganesh.